Well, how fitting is it that on Inter-Dominion night at Melton at Club Menangle tonight we honour the great Brian Hancock with the running of the Brian Hancock free-for-all, one of the highlights on the night event card. I caught up with Mr Inter-Dominion to have a chat about his Inter-Dominion highlights as far as he was concerned, and also other winning Inter-Dominions from other trainers and drivers, but also the wonderful association with the Allenby family, of course, associated with the great Al Sir Vancelot. Brian, as always, it's wonderful to catch up with you. Before we have a look at the history of Al Sir Vancelot, Inter-Dominions and the Allenby family and what they mean to you, these famous set of colours behind us, Brian, the black and orange checks, how did they come about?
Oh, it was pretty funny. I was only a young bloke coming in when I first came down here, and George Frost, Vic's father, had black and orange, and Don Dindal had black and orange. I thought, geez, that looks good. And I just sort of had, that's how it come about, the black and orange checks. And Kevin Newman, which is a great bloke, I thought, you know, an idol sort of fella, and a great mate of mine. And yeah, checks were in them sort of days too, so that's how I just had black and orange checks. That's how it came about.
Well, Brian, as always, great to catch up there. Before we have a look at your rich history in the Inter-Dominion, along with your association with the Allenby family, these famous set of colours behind us, the black and orange checks, how did they come about?
Quite easy, really. I remember when I was a kid, I'd seen George Frost, he had the hoops, black and orange, and I thought it was good. Don Dindal had black and orange, it was sort of a thing, and I just got black and orange checks and orange sleeves, and that's what I had, so it's great.
And of course, they have become one of the most famous and recognisable set of silks in harness racing history. And during that period, Brian, your silks, as you mentioned, Kevin Newman's, Vic Frost, white with the black stars, they went hand in hand. You just mentioned the name and the silks followed. Yeah,
well, people had a following. You had a following, you know, I had a following. Kay Newman, all of us did have a following. You know, certain people followed you. They knew the checks and knew the colours, and that's the way it went, you know, it was the way it was.
Brian, we're here tonight honouring you with the Brian Hancock free-for-all, and on your table tonight is members of the Allenby family. How did that rich and successful combination start?
I started back when I was a kid. I went and worked for Pat, the late Pat Allenby, and it just happened. And I got my first horse, a mare called Busy Girl, and I got her going. And I didn't win a race, won a couple of seconds. We sold her. Then Teeny Rena was there. She was happening in the paddocks a yearling, and I said to Pat one morning, I said, "That's a beautiful horse." He said, "You can have her, boy. You train her." And that's how it came about. And Pat's wife, Sylvia, is my cousin. So we've been just mates forever. We never shook hands or signed a piece of paper or nothing, and words our bond. And Pat said when I was a kid, he said, "Boy," he said, "I'll breed him." He said, "You train him." So that's the way it worked out.
And tonight we've got a fourth generation of the Allenby family with us on the table.
Yeah, we have young Patrick's here, you know, and he's a bit of fresh air actually. He's really, really keen, and when I say he's keen, he's got a fair bit of ability. I think I can see it in him, and he's a lovely young fella, and he's got a lovely wife, and he works the farm, and he loves his horses. And we were talking tonight, you know, and I think he'll be here for a long time.
Trevor Allenby, Brian, breeder, trainer, driver, owner, president of the Junior Harness Racing Club, just steeped in harness racing tradition.
Yeah, he is very steep, you know, and that's just the way it is in Junior in them days. It was like the families, you know, all them families. The Allenby family, they've had horses for 100 years. I think we're in, Don's image was 1936 or something, 34, so we're into our 90th years with these breeding. You know, that was a good family before I come along. And I hoped I improved the family when I come along, because I sort of put the mares to the best horses I could, and I love my breeding. So it's a very strong family. It goes through its weak spots. You know, some of the mares don't do what they should have done, but it'll pick up again. It'll get going again, and it'll come out somewhere.
Let's talk about that breeding, in particular one horse, Brian. We're here tonight on Inter-Dominion night, of course, widely recognised as being Mr Inter-Dominion, Al Sir Vancelot.
I've just come along. It all started with Teeny, of course. Teeny come along. She was by Overtrick, which was one of the leading sire at the time. And when he came in, we put the mare to him. We got the filly, luckily. She was a pretty good mare, and she was leased to Mr Harley Tolson, which has passed away now. And when she finished racing, and Harley said, "What do you think we should do?" I said, "The best horse is a horse called Smooth Fella in New Zealand." So we put her on the plane and sent her to New Zealand. Then Vance Hanover's happened to be there, and then well, the rest is history. We put it up. I couldn't get to Vance because he was fully booked out. I had to wait 2 years to get to him. And we put it Vance Hanover and got, people say, "Oh, you're lucky to get him." We sent the mare to New Zealand to get involved. No throwing semen around here and there. It was, that's how keen I was on it. You know, I think you've got to put the best of the best and hope for the best. And I've always felt that way, you know. And I've failed a lot of times, don't get me wrong, but it's always worked out pretty well for us.
Of course, our Sir Vancelot, Brian, 3 Inter-Dominions, 97, 98 and 99. When you sit back and reflect on your career now and those performances, which was the best?
Oh, that was all good, Mick. That was all good. You know, the night he won his first in Adelaide, I nearly threw it away. I went for home and he felt that good down the back. I let him run and he got tired. But, you know, I think his victory in New Zealand was very good. I got away with a bit of murder in the race. They were sort of left me alone a bit. But all his victories were good, you know. And I remember he won a Western Australian Cup. That night he won that, he done a super job. You know, he was just a good horse, you know. I know he never got the accolades he should have got in a lot of ways, but, you know, he won a Group 1 race in every state in New Zealand. You know, he done it by road and plane, and he'd land somewhere and he'd win. You know, he was just a good doing horse and a pleasure to train. You know, after he won the Inter-Dominion in New Zealand, a couple of hours later he walked into a pub and had a beer, you know. And he did that. He went to the Cleveland Hotel and walked in behind the bar and had a drink and stopped a couple of hours there for the boys, and that's the sort of horse he was, you know. And Tony Hurley and I had a bet, and that's what happened. I took him to the pub, and he walked in the pub. He was a great mate to me, the horse, and you know, I got Teeny Rena when I was a kid, and the whole family come through, you know. So it was just beautiful. It was a beautiful trip for all of us.
I think he might have played a starring role in a wedding as well, our Sir Vancelot.
Yeah, young Jane got married, and he took her to the church, you know, and we put him in the cart, and Sue, now she's passed away, and her sister got in the cart, and we went around the Illabo Showground, actually. And it's funny I say the Illabo Showground, that's not bad, our big track, and I had my first buster there. And it was off Teeny Rena, actually, so I fell out of the cart. I had a couple of ploughshares, and, you know, that Illabo, and she done the wedding, it was just that sort of horse, you know. And I never forget, he went down to Jack Primmer's place in Melbourne. He was away, and the wife and I, we called in one day, and I hadn't seen him for 6-7 months. He's down the back paddock, and I said, "You watch this." I went to the fence and yelled out, and he come galloping up, you know. And he looked at me and said, "Take me home," you know. And I thought, you know, I couldn't do that, but he was just a lovely horse, lovely horse.
2.1 million in prize money from 47 wins, 26 placings from only 97 starts.
Yeah, he had a great trip. He had a great, you know, and all that he was always fully sound. He got crook once on him in Perth once, and he ran second in the Western Australian Cup. But, you know, he won Group 1 race in every state in New Zealand, and went to, you know, he done a lot of great things, you know. And you don't appreciate it till he's gone, because you're so hyped up with him, you know. But he was just a great little horse.
What made our Sir Vancelot, apart from being trained and driven by one of the greats?
What made him? Oh, I think attitude. He had a great attitude. He had a great, you know, great constitution. He had a lovely will to win, and he worked with you. And I liked him and he liked me, so that was the best part of it. You know, we was good mates. You know, he knew he stood with me, and I knew I stood with him. You know, he wasn't a spoiled little shit. You know, he knew his position where he had to be, and I don't ever said a bad word to him, but he was just one of those horses that you dream of.
As always, Brian, great to catch up, to have a little chat and also reminisce. Enjoy the rest of your night. You certainly deserve it. Mr. Inter-Dominion on Inter-Dominion night.
Yeah, it's a pleasure, Mick, and I really appreciate the club inviting me tonight to present the trophy.